Hello, my name is Anwar Samara. I am an architect and I have done masters in urbanism at the Faculty of Architecture at the University of Ljubljana. Today we will be talking about climate change in Palestine and how is this global threat is affecting the daily lives of Palestinian people. So Palestine borders borders the Mediterranean Sea to the west, Jordan to the east, Lebanon to the north, and Egypt to the south. In general, Palestine lies within the Mediterranean climatic zone, which is considered to be a hot and arid region. The whole region actually has experienced an increase in temperatures over the past 50 years. However, Palestine is one of the countries that is most affected by climate change, despite its very limited contribution to global emissions due to the very low rates of industry and factories in the region. Actually, the total area of historic Palestine is less than 27,000 kilometers square. However, you can see here in the map the high percentage of land lost during the years during the Israeli occupation, despite the Jewish people were only making up to a third of the population in 1947. The UN recommended creating a Jewish state on 56% of the land. The Palestinians refused to accept actually this partition agreement of their homeland, but by 1949 the Nakba happened, the catastrophe, which had resulted in an ethnic cleansing of two-thirds of the Palestinian population, with Israel ruling over 78% of the land, which is the white area you were seeing in the map. And this land loss kept continuing during the years with more wars. In 1967, the 6 Days War, and it kept happening with taking control over more and more lands, actually in the West Bank and Gaza. And the last update was Trump's projected plan, which is meant to take more and more of the Palestinian state land. So when we refer to Palestine here, we refer to two geographical areas, which are the West Bank and Gaza Strip here, which are totally not connected. And actually also here, the West Bank is totally unconnected because at the current more than 60% of the land is a sea area, which means lands intended for settlements. Settlers already live there, Israeli settlers, and this keeps the land totally unconnected. So mainly when we say Palestine or refer to the Palestinian state or the Palestinian territories, we refer to the West Bank. Here we go. This is just a schematic map because again these cities are totally unconnected. But when we say Palestinian territories, we refer to the West Bank, which is located to the west of the Jordanian River over here, and bordering the Dead Sea actually, and Gaza Strip, which is a coastal area bordering the Mediterranean Sea. So this is the state we were talking about, and actually in 2012 the UN adopted a resolution to provide the country a non-member observer status. So these unconnected enclaves or cities of the West Bank actually are divided by Israeli-controlled lands, and where they built Israeli settlements, factories, buffer zones, walls, such as the concrete segregation wall that is going all along the West Bank. So when we talk about the climate change in Palestine, it is very necessary to refer to the geopolitical situation there, because the challenges that are facing Palestine are aggravated by many factors, such as the lack of available water because of the very restrict control of Israel over the water resources, the land, and the soil, which means it's a land with very, very limited resources, and also, unfortunately, with very unsustainable management of the land and air pollution. Also, to add to that, the inability to access and manage the natural resources and to enforce law and instructions are a result of the Israeli occupation that we cannot neglect. And these are the threats of climate change, especially with the high population rate, the poverty level, and the food insecurity. Palestine is also prone to natural disasters and hazards, including earthquakes, floods, droughts, and landslides. So, when we talk about climate change in Palestine, there are some factors which we need to mention and consider. These general factors starts with the increase in the number of droughts. Secondly, the rainfall during the period from 2003 to 2022, which were less than the historical average. And then the frequency of extreme events, which has increased lately. Minimum and maximum summer temperatures, which have increased while winter temperatures have declined. Then the probability of very hot summer days has increased. So to start with the irregular rainfall, the rainfall in Palestine currently is occurring in unusual times of the years, which means it's either before the start of the rain season or following it. This has often led to the spread of agricultural disease, which are new to the region, which resulted in intensive use of chemicals by farmers, and which means this will increase the expenses of the agricultural products, and also to take into consideration the negative environmental impacts of using such chemicals. So the delay of the rainfall affects the winter crops productivity, and it also affects the quantity of water percolating to the groundwater. The reduction of groundwater recharge causes a decline in the water levels that in turn affects quality of water abstracted through wells, which is the main water source for the irrigated crops and the whole region. In addition, the low levels of groundwater often resulted in damage to pumping equipment, which leads to high pumping costs and increasing the financial burdens on the agriculture sector. The change with the rainfall rates leads to soil erosion and damage to agricultural land and crops due to floods. And also it causes damage to stormwater and wastewater infrastructure. Here are some photos of some floods happening in the region because of the change of rainfall rates. Unfortunately, these floods caused a lot of damage to the infrastructure and the houses. This photo of one flood that happened on the 8th of January 2013. The flood happened in the area that is connecting two cities of Nablus and Tulkarm. In this flood, 6 Palestinians passed away because of these muddy floods. So, to mention the water crisis while talking about the rainfall, because rainfall is the main source of water for the renewable aquifers that Palestine has. And unfortunately, Israel takes control over all the water resources in the region. Actually, 90% of the water in the West Bank is pumped from the mountain aquifer, which is a joint Israeli-Palestinian resource of water. 80% of the water that comes from this aquifer is allocated for the Israeli use, and the remaining 20% for the Palestinian use. It also provides Israelis with unlimited water supply, while restricting Palestinian supply to a predetermined amount of some 118 million cubic meters from the existing drillings, along with 70 to 80 million cubic meters from new drillings. It further gives Israel the right to sell the Palestinians another 31 million cubic meters a year. So the current situation with water crisis in Palestine definitely leads to drought because of the rainfall deficiency in terms of amount, intensity, and duration of the season of rainfall currently, which means that this leads to reduction of the groundwater recharge. This means that the water level definitely declines in the wells and which means now we will have like higher issues to deal with related to water, which means also higher expenses and higher expenses of water treatments, and also more expensive water for people. This deficiency also creates the crisis of water because there is no balance between the demand and supply of the water resources that we have and the demand that people need. So here it is really very essential to mention the consumption of the Israelis for water and to the Palestinians versus Palestinians' consumption of water. So the Israelis are using 240 to 300 liters a day per person, while the WHO minimum standards are 100 liters per person per day. The Palestinians in the West Bank are having access to only to 73 liters of water. So on this graph, it shows although the demand for water is increasing through the years, the supply is very constant and it does not change. So it is also essential that we mention the temperature and the humidity changes that are happening in the region. In summer, the temperatures are going much higher, and in winter they are increasing very noticeably, and which means that now we have more humid and hotter summers, and we have colder winter days. So as Palestine is a very small region, these temperature changes are affecting the whole region actually, knowing no borders. It does not have anything to do with Israel and Palestine. The changes are happening all over the region. This is the before the 15 years recent mapping of the temperature on the region, and this is the current mapping of the temperature levels in the region, which are going much higher. Another very important feature of the climate change in the region is the strong winds, especially the sand ones that are happening in summer and the cold ones that are happening in winter. These strong winds, regardless the season that they flow within, they do cause loss of flowers, which means lower fruit development in the region later. So as a result of these increased temperatures, especially in summer, this means that people need more cooling, which means higher consumption of electricity, which represented another source of financial burdens on the citizens and increasing pressure on the electricity distribution networks, which cause frequent power cuts and damages to appliances, especially in the city of Tulkarm, which this electricity crisis is happening for more than 11 years now. These very high temperatures are also lately causing extreme events in the Palestinian territories, such as fires and heat waves, caused the depletion of groundwater and the destruction of large areas of seasonal crops. It is very important also to mention that the way the Israeli government is dealing with such extreme events like the fires is very different from the Palestinian government way of dealing with these fires if they happen, because of the lack of financial assets and the lack of the proper equipment that Palestinians have, which means the effects of these extreme events, especially the fires, is threatening the Palestinian lives more than it's doing for the Israeli lives. This photo refers to a fire that happened to one land near the city of Nazareth on the 9th of October 2022, where 5,000 people were quickly evacuated in order to prevent the fire to cause any damage for the people and the houses. However, this wouldn't be the case if this happened to Palestine because of the lack of all financial assets and all proper equipment to do so. The climate change, with all the factors that we have mentioned is also affecting the biodiversity in Palestine. This is causing a loss of the biodiversity that used to exist in the region. The special movement northward to the distribution of the mid species, the replacement by desert ecosystem prolong the seasonal periods of dryness, impacting the plants, the animals, and also increase the risk of forest fires. Then we have agriculture. Factors such as high temperature, the increased drought rates, and the low rainfall rates combine to pose a very big threat to the agricultural production in the occupied country, which makes providing food a difficult challenge and makes these agro products unaffordable to the most of the people in the country. So it is very crucial to mention agriculture when we talk about climate change in Palestine, because Palestine has approximately 31% agricultural land cover, of which 91% in the West Bank and 90% in the Gaza Strip. The rain-fed area is 86% of cultivated land. You can see the high dependency on the rainfall for the agriculture sector. So out of these 86% of cultivated land, 88% in the West Bank and 23% in Gaza. So agriculture is not only of great economic importance, contributing significantly to Palestinians' income, exports, food security, and job creation, but also it has a very high importance, symbolic, to the Palestinian people and their identity, because this conflict that is happening over the land between the Israelis and Palestinians makes the land, the agriculture, especially when we talk about the trees, the olive tree, at a very, very, very high symbolic importance to the Palestinian people. The very high temperatures in summer, the very cold temperatures, and or low temperatures in winter is definitely affecting the livestock and animal wealth in Palestine as well. Animals are also in need for cooling systems, especially in summer, very high temperatures currently. Taking as an example what happened in the 6th of May 2014 in Gaza Strip, where 2 million chickens died in 1 month. There are farms where the mortality rate was 10%, others 20%, and others 50%, and even more. Talking about how the climate change is affecting the daily lives of Palestinians, it is directly somehow rising the living expenses because of the very high expenses of water, which means very high expenses of agro products, very high expenses of chicken, animals, blah, 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 blah. All of this stuff leads actually to increasing the living expenses of the Palestinian inhabitants. The poverty and the food insecurity has been an issue since the occupation had started. However, it went higher with the climate change, and it went even higher and higher during the COVID pandemic. Here is one photo where people are donating some agro products for others because other people cannot afford it. So people are just somehow finding a way to help each other. Again, as food insecurity already is an issue in the Palestinian region, this climate change made the food insecurity levels higher and higher, and makes it harder for people to afford daily needs. Climate change in the region is affecting the human health as well. Major diseases related to water, sanitation, and food are appearing among people, animals, and plants, as we have mentioned. Some cases of thermal stress, which is heat stress, already harms the elderly, the ill, and workers exposed to heat, such as construction workers. The changes in temperature, humidity, and rainfall directly influence some disease. The risk of waterborne disease like cholera, diarrhea will increase as a result of the improper water supply, either in quantity or quality, for most of the population in the region. So, despite the very limited possibilities Palestine as a state has to deal with the climate change that is happening in the region, there are very small steps and very small milestones that were taken during the years to be part of the global movement against the climate change. And all started with 1995 when Palestine participated in the ratification of the climate change, UN Climate Change Convention as an observer state, and this continued to happen till 2006 when the national capacity made a self-assessment for global environmental management. Then in 2010, Palestine started the National Committee for Climate Change, which made adaptations for the strategy and the program of the action for the Palestinian Authority. In 2014, there was already a national development plan for the years 2014 to 2016. In March 2016, Palestine becomes a member in the UN Climate Change Convention Council. In 2016, Palestine already submitted an initial national communication report to the UN Climate Change Committee. In 2017, already Palestine submitted the nationally determined contribution NDC. So here are like some very small steps that Palestine is taking to be part of the global resistance of this climate change that knows no borders, that knows no race, where we all need to again collaborate together to fight this threat that is threatening our daily lives wherever we are, whoever we are. Thank you for listening.